Hi everyone, welcome to the Tech Alliance podcast, or the TAP for short. My name is Marina.
And I'm Andre.
And I'm Eleanor, this season's special co-host.
As a reminder, this season of our podcast is dedicated to a single topic, how to build a partnership team. The special project aims to guide companies new to partner development in understanding the benefits of partnership management and the steps involved in establishing a successful partnership team.
And it's been quite a journey. We talked about what a partnership team is, how to get a budget for one, what partner ops are, and why that's important. Listen to the previous episodes to learn more. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Today, we're going to discuss how to grow and lead a partnership team. This is a very special one for me, as I used to be on this person's team and can attest to the fact that they are a fantastic leader. So we're very lucky that they're here sharing their insights with us today. A big welcome to Ryan Marcoux, Head of SI Alliances at Atlan. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Eleanor, Marina, and Andre. It's great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Amazing. We're super excited to have you. So I will kick off. I do have some, specific questions that I would love to ask you throughout. But before I get into those, I recently saw you speak in Chicago, and you said that the potential of our partnership team lies dormant in our people. I think this speaks a lot to the way that you lead your teams. But tell me a little bit more about what that means to you and kind of how you came up with that.
It's kind of a wide-ranging topic, but what I found over the years, there's partner programs that are starting to look a lot alike. There's a lot of great partner professionals out in the world, and they're putting together great partner programs. However, I truly believe that partners do business with people, and it's our people that are on our teams that really make or break our success. So if we can focus on the partner managers and partner leaders on our team and grow and develop them as humans and set the right goals and paths for success, everything else will fall into place. The success for the team and the company will be a product or an outcome of what you do to grow these people. So as you know, it's a topic that I'm very passionate about. I just believe that people are going to get companies to where they need to be and not necessarily the partner program.
I love that. And this is a question that I, have asked a few people throughout this series, actually. But when we talk about the people that we have within our teams and, what they're able to do you think there is a perfect profile of a person coming into, a partnerships team? Do you think there's a perfect experience or background that they have?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I do believe that there is a specific person that makes a good partner manager, or it's a specific type of person that can turn into a great partner manager and leader. However, it's really hard to determine what that person is based on a CV or a resume. I'm a big believer that experience can be as much of an asset as it is a hindrance. I think that if you hire people that have too much experience, maybe in one field, it can kind of pigeonhole them or really make their mind focused on one topic or one skill set, which makes it harder to see the broader scale or broader side of the business. And more important than just looking at the individual themselves, you have to look at how that individual is going to fit into a team. If you hire a bunch of people that have the same skill sets or have the same backgrounds, you're not going to get that same thought diversity that you need to help teams and companies scale. So, yeah, that's a tricky question for me to answer. It really is, just because I think that there's so many dependencies and so many variables that could go into this. I mean, some of the best partner managers that I've ever worked with have teaching backgrounds or military backgrounds, or people that have worked in retail, but they come along with a certain skill set and a certain way to work with people and provide values to companies and teams that might not otherwise be identified on a resume or a CV. So it's a difficult question to answer, but it really is about, what are you looking for in a human? Are they focused on growing themselves? Are they focused on winning as a team? And if they kind of meet those specifications, the rest of the work experience really doesn't necessarily matter. So yeah, that's maybe a long-winded way of answering that, El, but I'm just a believer that you need to look at the human side and what that person is capable of, and less so what their experience is on paper.
That resonates really strongly with me, for example, Ryan. fully agree that in my experience as well, the diversity of backgrounds that exists in partnerships is pretty much unparalleled. There might be different reasons for this, but it's at least for the moment, let's enjoy it. But you did mention something that I wanted to dive slightly deeper in with you. You mentioned mindset. So, two questions packed into one there. What that mindset is, in your opinion, and how do you determine if the person has that?
Yeah, the first question is easier to answer than the latter. But when I think about mindset, it's about a growth and learning mindset. You don't necessarily need to have a lot of superstars who are, jockeying for the next position or looking to get promoted necessarily. But we want the humans on our team to take a growth and a learning mindset, meaning they have to be willing and have a passion for growing themselves as individuals, whether that's through learning the traditional way, through reading or taking classes, taking courses, going to partnership leaders events, whatever it might be. But they also have to be willing and have a passion for learning outside of the role. Like, what are they doing to grow themselves as individuals on the side? What types of activities are they into? Athletics, for example, are they into art or music, whatever it might be? And I'm a true believer that as long as they are willing to continue to grow and to learn, then you've got a really good shot of having somebody who could turn into a great partner manager or a leader. Now, identifying that is tricky. You have to do it first and foremost in the interview and background check process. And what that means and what is difficult for, I think, some hiring managers and some human resource departments, this might mean that you have to go a little off script with some of those typical interview questions. I think that interviewers kind of get into this rhythm of asking some of the generic questions about somebody's background and their experience leading partner programs. And you have to really dig into deeper questions and find out how they learn, how they like to learn, how do they like to get feedback, how do they like to give feedback. And if you can identify those things and find out that it's somebody that is receptive to that feedback and interested in growing and learning through a specific set of questions, that's really how you're going to bring that out in somebody. And that's really how you're going to identify the best people on the team. But it is challenging because I know that for a lot of us, an HR department might say, hey, here's a specific set of questions you have to ask, stick to this script. And it's really about working then with the hiring manager to make sure that they understand the information that you're trying to get from these candidates and set up the interview process in order to do that. So that's how I think about it. I think it's starting in the interview process is the easy way, but the reality is some of us will actually join a team or join a company as a leader and then, inherit a group of people. And it's kind of about re-interviewing and doing some of these stay interviews to make sure that those people truly fit the personality or the mindset that you're looking for in the team. And I don't want to sound negative, but sometimes what that means is there's going to be some changes that have to be made. It is crucial that we get the right people on the team. Jim Collins talks about it as getting the right people on the bus to drive teams forward. And sometimes what that means is getting the wrong people off the bus. I know that it's a negative topic that a lot of people don't want to really discuss, but that's the reality of it. You just have to identify the folks that you need on the team and make sure that those are the ones that you have in the room.
The fit is super important, and you heard it here first, people. Ryan is looking for Renaissance people. I think, Elena, you had a question related to that, like because Renaissance people need an environment. So follow up.
Yeah. So when it comes to building a team, what kind of people are you looking for on your team in terms of roles? So we've talked about the kind of the profile of what a partner manager might look like. If we think about building a team now, what does that look like? What roles do we want within the team versus what roles do we want to be collaborating with across the business?
That's a great question. In many ways, I would call this kind of the $1 million question because the people on the team are great. If you have now figured out that you get the right people on the bus, the right people in the room, you have to lean into what the business needs. So when I think about the types of roles that make a partner team successful, first and foremost, I think it's almost a forgotten piece, but partner operations. Partner operations is so crucial to how partner teams operate and succeed. And quite frankly, if you're at a smaller company and growing a partner team or growing a partner program, it can be hard to get headcount to get a partner operations person. So what that means is you have to be working extremely closely with sales operations or other operational people, because I think that one area where partner teams and partner managers really get hung up is on doing some of the day-to-day administrative tasks related to like attribution or measuring certain things within the system. So that's where my mind goes first and foremost. And sometimes you're lucky enough to hire amazing people on your team that are partner managers that actually have this operational mindset. So that's an ideal state. Or you could just hire somebody like Eleanor, who has a skill set across so many areas, and kind of encourage her to help with the partner operational side of the game. I'm not speaking from experience or anything. Second thing I really think about is partner engineering. Again, early on in companies and growing teams, sometimes it's hard to fight for a partner dedicated engineering resource. But I've always taken this philosophy that if partners know everything that they need to know about what your company does, and you are keeping them top of mind, that's how you're going to generate the most business. And in order to ensure that the partners that you're working with know everything that they need to know, a lot of it comes down to that technical skill set and the ability to ask technical questions, and having somebody from an engineering perspective that can focus on those partners and let them know that they're there to support them with product questions, support them with whatever might be going on in the technical world is crucial. And then the third thing that always comes to mind for me is then partner marketing. I think this is maybe an obvious one, but sometimes it's very difficult to do and can oftentimes go overlooked at a growing company. But you need a way to go to market with partners. And if you're a younger company or a smaller company or even a larger company, you need a way to generate business with partners. And I've worked with some companies in the past where they almost had their hand out to say, hey, where can referrals come from? Where are leads coming from? And the reality is you have to do a good job developing those leads together. That's how a partnership works. It's not the case where companies can have their hands out. So those are the three roles that I really think about outside of the partner manager, partner sales side of the games. It's that operations, the engineering, and marketing. And luckily, most teams have those roles put in place, at least at like the sales operations or sales engineering or marketing overall. You have to work very closely with those departments until you could fight for your own resources. But if you could get the operations correct, if you could get that technical expertise and that engineering correct, and you could go to market with these folks in the field, you've got a really good chance of being successful.
Wow, thank you so much for the answer. I must say that it is so interesting how complex it has become in the last 10 years, because the sphere just developed so quickly. Now we have not just partner managers, but we also have partner operations and partner engineering and partner marketing, and so many experts we need to run partnerships smoothly. So once we have all these great people on our team and supporting the team, how do we target the team? What goals, what KPIs and objectives do we have? Do we need to set individual or team goals? And how do we align them to company objectives?
Yeah, this topic I feel like could be its own podcast episode, and I definitely have some ideas and things that I've used in the past that aren't necessarily the typical standard ways of measuring partner teams. But I do want to start with some of the, I'm going to say obvious, I don't know if that's the correct word, but kind of the normal things that you would think about. The reality is partner teams can look like a cost center if there's not some type of revenue component tied to it. So first and foremost, you do want to make sure that in some respect, in some way, shape, or form, the partner team is aligned to a revenue target. Whether that's sourced revenue or influenced revenue or whatever it might be, you always have to have that component in place, right? And then you go one level down from there there's usually some type of lead generation or source business target as well. I mean, our partner teams, it's one of the things that we're responsible for is driving funnel into the company. So it's really important to have those metrics as your outcome goals. Now, you can't stop there, though. I'm a big believer that those outcome goals, I'm going to say that you should forget about them once you set them. And don't necessarily mean that literally, but we set these outcome goals. We set these revenue targets and we set these sourced opportunity targets. That's great. That really is great. However, you need to go a few levels deeper because the reality is sometimes partner teams can't go and close a deal on behalf of a salesperson, and they can't necessarily increase the total addressable market that our partnerships are working within. So you have to go a little bit deeper. And this is where I like to talk about more process level goals. What this is, and it kind of goes back to where the strength or the potential of our partner teams lies dormant in our people. You have to set up the individuals on the team with goals that they can control, that are more activity based, that are key drivers to those outcome goals. The writer of Atomic Habit, I feel so bad for forgetting his name. Atomic Habits is I think it's an amazing book. And he talks about that, companies don't rise to the level of their goals or the outcomes. They kind of fall to the level of their processes. And I'm misquoting that a little bit, but I love that idea where you can't just set these astronomical goals and expect to hit them. You have to fall back to what are the minimum or the minimum expected processes that you need to set in place. So giving examples, this can look like, how often or how many partner conversations are you having? How many account mapping sessions are you having that can result in true connections, not just these handshake meetings where we agree on working together. It's about how many opportunities are you actually discussing? How many thought leadership pieces can you work with at one of your partnerships to produce? How many new partners are you not just signing, but actually onboarding? And those are some of the goals that partner managers and partner leaders can actually control. And we all know it's easy for this group to understand that if you hit those goals, if you hit those process level, activity level goals, those outcomes are going to happen. They're really going to happen. But unless you're really managing and coaching to those kind of basic goals, and calling them basic goals is not doing it justice, but you've got to manage and lead to that process level. And honestly, that's, in my opinion, where the fun happens. That's where you could show the people on your team that it's possible to do things that they might not have thought that they were capable of doing. And you could show them this quarter over quarter or month over month progress on the relationships that they're building, the conversations that they're having. And like I said, we all know that if those things are done well, the revenue is going to come, the new business is going to come. So that's how I think about it. But I do want to circle back to the first thing I said. I mean, you really do have to still have those company level goals. But let me end with one more point on this topic. I think that there's a lot of partner teams and a lot of companies that actually set too many individual outcome goals. There's a danger in doing this in some ways, and maybe danger is too dramatic of a word, but I've seen too often where there are too many individual goals set on partner teams. And what it does, it actually sets partner managers on the same team up to compete against each other. When we talk about these quotas, these monthly quotas or quarterly quotas, there's a lot of pressure put on partner managers to hit those. And some partner managers, and I'd like to think that we're hiring better people on our teams than this, but they might have that short-term mindset to make sure that they are hitting their individual targets and that they're doing everything they can to get their next paycheck. And what that can result in is, one, in themselves, a lack of creativity, a lack of innovation. It could also result in the maybe lack of motivation to share information across the rest of the team. And it can really result in a kind of a disjointed or siloed group of partner managers. So you need to find a way to break that down. You need to make sure that you're not setting these teammates up to compete against each other. So for that reason, I also love team-based goals. I love tying individuals' compensation to what the team needs to do. And that way it encourages creativity, encourages collaboration and knowledge sharing. So I think that's an important piece that is sometimes forgotten. It's not just what goals you set, but it's how you lead to them. Like, how can you make sure that your team is all working together? And I haven't found too many CFOs that are willing to do this, but I'm actually even a believer that if you could take out variable compensation altogether, if you could take money out of the equation and have people just focused on what's going to get the job done well instead of what's going to get them paid, that's when you're going to have these amazing outcomes. That's when you're going to have people that are trying to innovate, trying to find new things. But that is a little bit challenging. But Eleanor, I know that we had success doing this when we worked together, really making sure that we were setting those team-based goals. And quite frankly, I've never worked on a more collaborative team when we did set those goals correctly.
Well, controversial as it may sound, I'm a big believer in what you're saying, Ryan. And I think actually, if anything, this applies to many other teams, not just partnerships. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, only partnerships can afford to be this way, I don't think so. I think you can think again. A quick throwback to what Ryan was saying before. It's James Clear, the author of There We Go.
James Clear.
I wouldn't have been
Thank
able
you.
to remember off the top of my head either, but there will be a link in the description if you haven't heard of him or the book. It's definitely highly recommended. So as you know, our podcast is also a book review podcast. I'm not sure we're going to do Atomic Habits, so please read it by yourselves. Homework. Now, back to you, Ryan. On this team, so you talked about this quite extensively, and I think the last point on team-related goals is super strong. Let's dive deeper into that one as well. Beyond individual compensation and team compensations, what other incentives should be put in place? What other things you found motivate partnership professionals to drive company-wide results?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that the last thing that you just said is important, the company-wide goals, because I don't think it's just about having the team-based goals. I am a true believer that the partner team needs to be hyper-focused on the impact that they're having at the company level, meaning I do like making a component of compensation or goal setting. I want the team focused on what the company number is as well. Like, we are all doing our jobs, and hopefully we are doing something that's bigger than ourselves. So I don't want to leave out that part, that the company goals are important. I do have a few other maybe non-traditional ways of motivating teams. This might sound, again, a little atypical, so to speak, but I love celebrating failure. Celebrating failure, I think, is a very, very important thing to do. And what I mean by that, I like celebrating failure when people are trying to innovate. I want to make sure that we are setting up a safe space for folks to try things and to learn. And when you're trying new things that are maybe not part of your standard process, not all of it's going to work. So I'm a big believer in trying new things and failing fast. And I love the example, the company 3M, who created the sticky note. That sticky note was actually a failure. And what 3M does, I won't tell the entire story again, maybe for an entirely different podcast, but 3M loves rewarding like the biggest failure of their month or the biggest failure of their quarter. And they actually celebrate that in a big team meeting. Like, who tried something that was just like a colossal failure? And again, it's about encouraging innovation. And when they were trying to create the sticky note, it wasn't supposed to be the sticky note. They were trying to invent something completely different. But somebody saw this quote unquote failure and actually said, no, that type of technology or something as simple as a sticky note, that actually has a use. It might not do what we initially thought it would what we intended it to do, but there's another use for it. So again, I know that sounds kind of funny, and it's hard to really describe at length in a podcast like this. But if you celebrate the good and the bad and you create that safe space, you're going to have teammates that are willing to try new things. If they're not worried about that affecting their paycheck, or if they know that innovation and trying new things is going to be celebrated, you'll be amazed at the ideas that will surface. And again, not all of them will be good, but somebody's bad idea can trigger a good idea. So I do like that type of motivation. Again, I know that's a little outside of what people might be comfortable with, but that's something that I think about as well. Andre, I don't know if I answered your question directly at all. I'm happy to continue on the topic, but that's just where my mind goes as some of the non-traditional ways of motivating folks, and reward the failure.
I love the answer, and I love the fact that our episode is branching out into many other things. We talked about atomic habits, we talked about sticky notes, a lot of homework for our listeners if they haven't heard or like read up about those examples before. So I love that.
It's so funny because I've actually heard of a few companies recently that have a head of failure that is responsible for going to teams on a weekly basis and asking them where their biggest failures are. So I definitely think you're onto something here, Ryan. I think this is going to become more and more common. So I love this. So we've talked about, the different types of people that we have in our teams, what those roles are, how we target them, how we reward them. But when it comes to partnerships teams, they are often spread out across the world. We've often got sometimes, one person in each country, and they are a silo and trying to do the best that they can within their own individual region. And then we're coming together most of the time virtually as a team. What kind of tips do you have, best practices do you have for managing a global team effectively?
Yeah, I mean, even with this podcast, we've experienced the challenges of working across multiple time zones, right? It's amazing how technology has helped shrink the world, but even our ability to shrink the world doesn't change time zones for us, right? We're still working with teams across the world. So I try to, as best as possible, level the playing field through the proper mediums of communication. So, for example, we've all worked on teams where the US team, the European team, and the team in APAC, for example. I mean, no one's awake. Like, you can't have the entire team awake and online at the same time. So I'm a big believer in video recorded updates. Like, if there is a team wide message, the leader can record a message. I mean, we all use the different recording platforms, but that way everyone is receiving the message in the same way, in the same medium. And obviously, that this type of thing that I'm talking about, it's not the type of communication where you could have a lot of interaction. I mean, these types of video updates are very much sometimes pass downs or company updates. So that's the first thing I think about, is like the more you could keep the communication with everybody on the same level, even if it's not live, that's one good thing to do. The second thing that I think is important is to not have one region dominate the live meetings. I think that's very, very unfair. I've worked with mostly North American based companies, and because the company is based in North America, everything seems to be done in North American hours. And I think that's unfair, even if the leader is based in North America. So for team meetings, I love to rotate them for time zones. Don't give any one company, or excuse me, any one team or any one geography the advantage of joining, every meeting live. I really do think something as simple as rotating who's leading meetings and rotating the time zones that they're in is the best way to do it, because the reality is, we used to get stuck in this when Eleanor and I worked together. A lot of the meetings were live for North America and the UK and Europe, but then everybody in the APAC region was just watching the recording. So I think rotating it around, so it's sometimes hosted in the European time zones or sometimes hosted in the APAC time zones, even if that means other teams are listening to it on a recording. I just think that's the best way, because you don't want to create this situation where somebody feels like they're out on an island. In Australia, that could feel like a very literal thing, that they're out on an island and not able to join, company meetings or team meetings. And the last thing I'll say on this topic, and this kind of goes just beyond the time zone conversation, I like having everyone joining meetings using the same medium. So even if that means you have 4 people sitting in an office and 4 people virtual, I'm a big believer that all 8 of those people should be taking the meeting from their computer. I've seen too many times where the team that is in the room together is having these side conversations where the teams that are on the phone or on the virtual meeting room are kind of left out, or they can't hear the side conversations that are happening. So if you want to create true team unity and a true even playing field when it comes to collaboration, I always try to make sure that like everyone should be using the same form of communication, because working in this virtual world is hard enough where if you have teammates that are collaborating in the room and the rest of everyone is stuck in a virtual setting, it can create these unseen divisions among the team. So yeah, breaking down the time zones, like I said, I'm trying to rotate the team meetings, trying to have as many video recorded messages as possible, and then making sure that no one is ostracized or no one's left out of the conversation because they might not be physically in the room.
That's a great idea. I think it is useful for any remote team, not only for partnership managers. Let's get back to the conversation about celebrating failure. Ryan, what has your biggest failure been? What is your sticky note
Oh,
moment when it comes to leading partnership teams?
my biggest failure was not finding a way to keep Eleanor on my team all those years ago. I really think that might have been my biggest career failure ever. I kind of created it though. I encouraged her to, I just wanted to get out of her way and let her spread her wings and fly, and she did. But in all seriousness, my greatest failure, that's a great question. I think that I saw some failures early on in my leadership journey when I thought that I was supposed to be the leader at the helm of everything, that I was supposed to be in control of everything that was going on, and that I was the voice of the team. And that is not the way to go about it. I think that I'm a big believer in servant leadership, and it was not a type of leadership that I had originally adopted when I was younger in my career or a younger leader. You need to empower everybody on your team to lead. You need to give them the context so when you, the leader, are not in the room, they're able to push the objectives of the team forward. And I got into this position where if I was traveling or if I was out on the road or if I was lucky enough to take some time off, decisions stopped. Everyone was waiting for me to have the final say or for me to have make the decision on what gets done. And that could really slow a team down. So I would say that was an early failure that I was lucky enough to learn from and lucky enough to really study about what servant leadership looks like. And then it was game changing for the teams that I led, because everyone, I think, and Eleanor could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that everyone on the teams that we were on felt empowered to make those decisions. They knew the why and what we were shooting for, and they didn't need somebody with a director or VP or C-level title in the room. They knew that they can make those decisions on their own. So it's the type of failure that I try to speak to young leaders about, because I think it's like a very natural thing for a leader to be like, okay, I'm in charge now. Like, I'm going to make all the decisions and people are going to come to me, and it really can slow things down. So when I think about my biggest failure, that's really what it is, or what it was.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, Ryan, thank you so much for today's talk and for helping us to release the 4th episode of the special project.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations. I'm passionate about these topics, and I look forward to working with you all again.
And many, many thanks to Eleanor, our guest co-host and expert.
Thank you so much. I have loved this episode. I think there's a ton of learning for leaders here, be it, in hiring best practice, the questions that you can ask, the roles that you should be looking for within your teams, how to target them on, team versus company goals, and obviously this servant leadership piece as well, which is just an absolute game changer, I think, when it comes to best practice. I also think that this episode has highlighted some of the things that, you know, partnerships people can be looking for when they're looking for a leader and someone that they want to work with and someone to help them progress their career, which is absolutely what Ryan helped me do. So this episode has really made me miss being a part of Ryan's team, but I have really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Well, Eleanor, you are the sticky note, I guess, of the partnerships world. Thanks, Eleanor. And thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Marina. Next time, we're going to discuss the last topic of the special series, tracking the results. So stay with us. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the episode with anyone who's interested in building a partnerships team. You'll find the links in the description.
Catch you next time on The Tap.